Hello, I'm Lebu Tiseko. Welcome to Focus on Africa, our top stories. People around the world are coming together today to say no more to the practice of FGM. We'll be asking why the practice still persists.
Your husband could marry another wife. She might be circumcised, so she starts insulting you, the uncircumcised woman, that you're a girl. You're just equated to your children.
Also on the programme, running for president. The clock is ticking for candidates in Nigeria to woo voters with just 10 days before the country heads to the polls.
They should create more job opportunities. They should give equal opportunities to people based on merit.
We also will be looking at how illegal fishing in Somalia is leaving some communities struggling to make ends meet. And in sport, West Ham are investigating alleged racial abuse of the Egypt international Mohamed Salah. Hello and good to have you with us here on Focus on Africa from BBC World News. It is the United Nations International Day of Zero Tolerance for Female Genital Mutilation. Now, according to UNICEF, at least 200 million girls and women alive today in 30 countries around the world have undergone FGM, as it's known. Although the practice violates a series of well-established human rights principles, norms and standards, in 28 African countries, it's still happening. The World Health Organization says 3 million girls are thought to be at risk of having it done every year. Now, despite efforts to stop it, FGM could be on the rise in eastern Uganda. It was banned there in 2010. That was after a number of public mutilation ceremonies. 3 people have been convicted since the open circumcisions began, and they include a 15-year-old girl and a woman who underwent the cut themselves. But some of the women say that they chose to have it done as an act of protest. Just a warning, Catherine Biarahanga's report does contain scenes you may find disturbing.
This amateur footage shot on the 16th of January shows girls and women undergoing a public female genital mutilation. The cut is seen as a rite of passage in the Sabin community. The ceremony, how much money? 26-year-old Sylvia Yeko was one of the 7 circumcised during the ceremony.
Okay, during this day, I felt so proud. Even I was more excited, by the way. I just felt excited.
The cutting is banned and she could face up to 5 years in prison. She says her decision was not only cultural but a form of protest too, to show her anger at the government's failed promises.
We are in Kwasero.
Sylvia shows me a local girls' secondary school, built following a presidential pledge to educate girls and help stop FGM. She says even though the school was meant to be free, fees can be as high as $90 a term, which is often unaffordable for people in her community.
When they come to school, they will be chased home for money, okay, like school fees. Reaching home, the father will say like, I don't have money to be paid to a girl.
FGM amongst the Sabin is steeped in a lot of cultural mysticism. I've been told that some of the girls and women who undergo the cut are first taken to this forest where they go through several rituals. It's so secret that none of them are allowed to talk about what happens here. FGM is mainly practiced in the Sabe and Karamoja regions of eastern Uganda. Even though the number of women circumcised fell when it was outlawed in 2010, people here tell us cultural beliefs towards the practice have not really changed. Lydia, whose name we've changed to protect her identity, is 32 and a mother of 5. She's one of the several married women who have been cut in the last 2 months. Lydia believes women who aren't circumcised are sometimes looked down upon, and it could affect your marriage.
Your husband could marry another wife. She might be circumcised, so she starts insulting you, the uncircumcised woman, that you're a girl. You're just equated to your children.
What many have told us is by giving up FGM, they expected social services and infrastructure from the government. There have also been allegations some elected leaders here are encouraging the practice for political gain. Uganda's first female Speaker of Parliament has been a key campaigner in the fight to end FGM.
I think it's the wrong reason. I know that they're unhappy about a number of issues, but I think injuring yourself because there's no road, I think it's also not right. But it's our duty to ensure that they have services.
No one knows exactly how many women have been cut since the public circumcisions began in December. But stopping the practice for good will take more than enforcing the law. Catherine Biarahanga, BBC News, Sebei.
Well, we heard there from women who chose to have FGM performed, but many just aren't given that choice and it affects them for the rest of their lives. Bashira Sheikh, a survivor of FGM and an activist against the practice, had it carried out on her when she was just 11 years old. She's now 25 and she is still struggling with severe health consequences.
The procedure was pathetic. It's one of the most severe type of non-medical procedure, and it was also unhygienic. After I underwent the circumcision, that was when I realized I was having a bladder problem. Sometimes I experience uncontrolled urine passage because my bladder cannot hold. I wear pants and liners. When I was not at home, like when I was traveling or maybe at work, I do carry my liners and some changing garments. I was having the complication for 13 years. My worry is during operation, the doctor inserted a tissue to correct the problem, and I was also advised not to add weight because it will compress the tissue which I was inserted in my bladder. I also told I can only give birth through cesarean section.
Bashira Sheikh speaking about some of the health problems she's experienced as a result of having FGM performed on her. Well, Dr. Aidan Abdullahi is a surgeon based in Nairobi in Kenya, and he offers reconstructive surgery to survivors of FGM and joins us now. Thank you for taking the time to speak to us on Focus on Africa, sir. You work a lot in the East African region. Just tell us how large and widespread the problem is there.
Thank you for having me. The problem is very endemic. It's according to the United Nations. In Kenya alone, 4 million women are survivors of the female genital mutilation, and with its own sequelae problems like what has been alluded to by the survivor from Uganda. And out of these 4 million people, we're only able to see few. We're not able to see all of them, of course. And prevention remains the mainstay of focus in solving this problem. As far as surgery is concerned...
Sorry to interrupt you, sir. I was going to say that we heard some really upsetting testimony, really, from somebody who'd had the procedure performed on her, talking about the health impacts. What are some of the things that you see?
Well, the major clinical complaints or presenting complaints are psychological is number one. The first thing they say is they feel less of a woman. They feel that dignity has been taken away. Sexuality is a major thing amongst the women as opposed to men. I mean, they really take their sexuality very seriously. So the feeling of incompleteness, they don't feel like they are complete. The second complaint is decreased libido and decreased sexual pleasure. Lack of sensitivity, significant lack of sensitivity during intercourse, as well as I would say about more than almost 70% of them complain of lack of orgasm. And in a lot of instances, a lot of them have said they don't know what orgasm is all about. Those are the main complaints. Of course, we've got the rare ones who come with complications, which are fistula, because of type 3B, whereby they sew the whole opening of the external genitalia, together with the mutilation of the labia majora, minora, and the clitorectomy. That's removal of the entire clitoris.
So
those ones, when they are...
Sorry, in terms of dealing with the issue, I mean, the United Nations has recognised this as something that is really contravenes the human rights of women and girls, and yet we still see the problem persisting. What needs to happen to change attitudes?
In my opinion, and after working on this field for now about 3-4 years now, I think the best thing is a collective effort by the community leaders, involvement of men in the fight against female genital mutilation. Men are on the peripheral line. They're not in the center of all this. It's women who talk a lot about these things. So we need to involve men in dealing with these cultural bad practices. But I must also point out that the governments of Africa need to really put on a lot of effort. Certainly they don't have resources to channel, because they've got major pressing issues like hunger, sanitation, health issues, education. But they really need to put on a lot of effort in terms of education. Maybe from early, they need to go to the village levels, involve the local village leaders. But more importantly, the laws which have been passed must be implemented. Here in Kenya, the government has done a lot of steps towards that. There are laws that forbid anybody to do female genital mutilation, which was passed in 2013, and that carries a massive sentence of 10 years and above. They're trying to implement. The government is really trying here in Kenya, but not. There's a lot more that could be done.
Okay.
You've mentioned a very important point in your earlier.
Dr. Abdullahi, I'm so sorry to interrupt you midway. There is a lot to say and a lot to talk about on this issue, but we're right out of time. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Thank you. All right, let's have a look at some of the other stories making headlines across Africa and the rest of the world now. And in Tunisia, a court has given a 5-month suspended jail sentence to a mother who racially abused a black school teacher after her daughter was thrown out of class. The conviction is the first under the country's new anti-racism law. Rights groups say black people routinely face discrimination there. The International Criminal Court in The Hague says the former president of the Ivory Coast, Laurent Gbagbo, is now in Belgium after his conditional release from prison. Mr. Gbagbo was acquitted of war crimes by the court on Friday on condition that he went to a country that was willing to send him back should there be an appeal. Pope Francis has admitted publicly that there is a problem within the Roman Catholic Church of bishops and priests sexually abusing nuns. He told reporters that this abuse was continuing and he was continuing to work to stop it. The Pope said that the number of clerics had been suspended and vowed to do more to combat abuse. Now, it is exactly 10 days to go before Nigeria heads to the polls, and as the date gets closer, voters will be thinking about the issues that are important to them. All of the candidates, including the incumbent President Muhammadu Buhari, are out on the campaign trail trying to woo the people. Well, the BBC's Salim Kikeke looks at who the frontrunners are and some of the issues that matter to them.
Africa's most populous country goes to the polls in just over a week, giving Nigerians the chance to decide who will be their next president. More than 70 candidates will take part in the elections. But here are some of the main players. Fighting to remain as Nigeria's head of state is the incumbent president, Muhammadu Buhari. In power since 2015, he's pledged to renovate 10,000 schools a year, but has faced criticism after the economy went into recession 2 years ago. His stiffest competition will come from this man here, Atiku Abubakar, a former vice president who has promised that 40% of his government ministers will be young people. On a continent where the average age of leaders is 62, Feladu Rotoye is considered as one of the youngest candidates. The 47-year-old is keen on educational reform. Former governor of Cross River State, Donald Duke, has pledged to build an average of 2 million houses nationwide each year in a bid to tackle the housing deficit. So, what are the key points Nigerians will have in mind when they enter the polling booths? Well, there's the country's economy. It's a key election issue. Nigeria slipped into recession in 2016. And with the cost of oil declining, the country desperately needs to diversify its economy. Then there's security and the war on Boko Haram. Nigerians will need to decide whether President Buhari has fulfilled his promise of defeating the militants. Youth engagement and women in politics will also be some of the key issues on minds of Nigerians when they go to the polls on the 16th of February.
All right, let's go live now to our very own Peter Okocha, who is in Nigerian city of Lagos. Peter, you know us South Africans always have something to say when it comes to politics, but is it the same over there?
Absolutely, Lebu, and all the candidates are crisscrossing the country in their private jets and in their four-wheel drives, canvassing for votes. The local media here, both broadcast and print, are replete with candidates' promises on what they're going to do if they are elected into office. But just as we saw in that report just now from Salim, there are several key issues that Nigerians will want whoever wins the presidential election on the 16th of February to tackle. And I'll be speaking to some people on the streets of Lagos.
They should create more job opportunities. They should give equal opportunities to people based on merit.
But I think if we have stabilized electricity, Nigeria is good and everybody will come in to invest.
I would really like the winner to sit down and look into education.
Lots and lots of opinions there, Peter, but tell us what the registration process has been like.
Well, it's been fraught with problems. I mean, just to give you one figure, 84 million people have been registered to vote in these elections. So going to collect their permanent voters' cards has been a problem. A lot of people facing issues when they go to the local collection centers to collect them. But I did speak to the head of the Independent National Electoral Commission about 10 days ago, and he promised that everybody could collect their, would be able rather to collect their PVCs before election date. The problem, Lebu, is that the final day for collection is the 8th of February, which is this Friday. And there's still many people out there who say they can't get their hands or can't even locate the centers where their PVCs are. Lebu.
Oh, Peter, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be speaking to you again before too long. Thank you, Peter, in Lagos. You're watching Focus on Africa from BBC World News with me, Lebu Diseko. Still to come in the programme, sport. African stars aiming high in the NBA as the Toronto Raptors beat the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm Lebu Diseko. The top stories this hour. On International Day of No Tolerance for Female Genital Mutilation, world leaders have pledged to eradicate the practice by the year 2030. And Nigerian candidates are on the campaign trail trying to sway voters with just 10 days to go before the country heads to the polls to elect a new president and National Assembly. Now, while piracy in Somalia has been in the decline, illegal fishing is on the rise. Once thriving fishing communities are now struggling to make ends meet. Locals say that international companies and illegal fishermen are threatening their livelihood and limiting their catches. Khalid Baroud reports now from Mogadishu.
Dawn at Mogadishu's Lido Beach. Gathered on the shore are the city's fish traders and middlemen, waiting for today's catch. Abdi Ali has been out all night fishing on a rough sea. Now he's in a race to be amongst the first to bring his haul to market. But there is nowhere for a small boat to dock, so the fish is loaded into speedboats to get it to shore. After hard bargaining, he only makes a small profit. This trip costs him at least $80 on petrol alone. Like most of the fishermen here, Abdi has little choice in how he earns his living. He chooses to fish at night to maximize his catch. But that is also when the illegal fishing vessels are most active. Abdi says not only does illegal fishing threaten his livelihood, but also his own life too. The independent organization Secure Fisheries estimates there could be anywhere between 100 to 400 boats fishing illegally off the Somali coast. By law, only Somalis are permitted to fish within 24 nautical miles of the coast, and all foreign vessels must carry license to fish in the country's waters. Apart from dealing with the hazards of illegal fishing, the fishermen of Mogadishu dock here at Lido, one of the most popular beaches in Somalia. They also happen to share a corridor with the commercial boats docking at the port behind that building. So accidents where boats clash are inevitable. causing these fishermen thousands of dollars worth of damage. The local fishermen are feeling further unprotected by the government when the fishing ministry decided to grant licenses to 31 Chinese operators. They fear the Chinese vessels will deplete fishing stock, and they too will likely be armed. The Somali Minister for Fisheries says they have vetted the Chinese operators, and the new licenses are restricted to migratory tuna stocks, and they will not affect local fishermen. But the minister's reassuring message is not popular with the fishermen on this beach. Most of the Chinese vessels have already started their fishing operations, with the local industry fearing they will suffer as a result. Despite the challenges, Abdi and his colleagues have no other option than to go out to sea. Ghalib Baroud, BBC News, Mogadishu.
This is Focus on Africa. Time now for the sport with Mimi.
Thank you very much, Lebu. West Ham are investigating after a video emerged of a fan racially abusing Liverpool forward Mohamed Salah during Monday's 1-1 draw at their London stadium. The 26-year-old Egypt striker was filmed on a mobile from a section of home supporters as he was taking a corner. The footage taken by a fan shows expletives directed at Salah, including about his Muslim religion. In a statement, West Ham said they have a zero-tolerance policy to any form of violent or abusive behavior. They went on to say, there is no place for this kind of behavior at our stadium. Moving on here in England, the English Premier League title race is getting tighter. Liverpool dropped even more points after their 1-1 draw against West Ham on Monday. That now means that Manchester City can get back to the top of the league. They're playing away at Everton today. Everton's Senegal star Idrissa Gana Gueye is one African star to look out for in the match. A win would see City overtake Liverpool on goal difference, but Liverpool would still have a game in hand. Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola not focusing too much on the title favourites tag.
Yeah, 3-4 days ago we are already done. So the champion was Liverpool, and now we are the favourites, and maybe in 3 days we are leading or we are 7 points behind. So just try to be calm in that situation. I said my feeling in the last week, so will be a lot of surprises and will be tough for every team to win on games, because the contenders and no contenders and all the teams have their abilities, capacities and skills to make you create problems.
What I want really, and what is my feeling, is not this title race or whatever. Is not for us to look to that fight. We know what is our fight, and for sure our fans, what they want for tomorrow is our team winning the game. Is the most important thing. You are talking about one title, and this moment not just two teams are fighting. I think more than two teams are fighting for this.
And finally, in basketball, Cameroon's Pascal Siakam contributed 16 points on Tuesday in Toronto Raptors' victory over the Philadelphia 76ers, beating them 119-107. And his countryman Joel Embiid had 37 points and 13 rebounds for his league-leading 44th double-double. And that's all the sport. Back to you, Lebu.
Great stuff, Mimi. Thank you. Now, before we go, just time to show you my favourite story of the day. This little boy behind me and his fantastic designs. He taught himself to crochet, aged just 5 years old, using YouTube. Jonah Larson is 11 years old now, and it's fair to say he is an internet sensation. He lives in the United States, but he's originally from Ethiopia, and he was adopted from an orphanage and uses the money he gets from his crocheting to donate to it. What a guy. That's all we've got time for. We appreciate your time. Thank you for watching.